The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into The Sports Source. Happy to have you with us today. We have a jam-packed show for you. Going to talk about Tennessee going out to Missouri, getting a big win. Might not have been the prettiest thing in the world, but anytime you go on the road and beat an SEC team and hold them to 8 points, it's hard to complain too much. Although there were some complaints. We'll discuss them. We'll see how much we're complaining. Tennessee wins 19-8 last night. We'll get into that in just a second. Let's start this first segment brought to you by Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. And hey, it's Thanksgiving week, so cobble, cobble, cobble. When it comes to homes and land, nobody is better in East Tennessee than Phil and his team. Check out the incredible views available on this 141-acre farm in Roane County. Just absolutely gorgeous. 141 acres available right now. You can learn more by calling Phil this week. You see the numbers there to call. You see the website to go to. Unbelievable deal on a gorgeous piece of land. Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. And here's the most gorgeous panel in all of Knoxville sports. Bob Hodge, VFL Will Overstreet, Jimmy Himes, VFL David Liggins, your name down there? All right, got it right this week. Guys, Tennessee, there's no denying that was not a beautiful football game. As somebody who has to produce a show on a night game, I did like the fact that it was a fast football game. So if Vandy is ugly and fast, I can deal with that next week. You look at it, though, I thought that was going to be a tricky game. I really did. You had reason to believe that Missouri fans would show up. They didn't. There wasn't as much emotion as you thought. But you go in there, it's Gary Pinkel's last game. It's senior night. It's 28 degrees or whatever. It's like the fourth coldest kickoff, I think, in UT history, which is hard to believe. So there were reasons for Tennessee. It's on the road. There were reasons for Tennessee to play that one tough and not have a big stranglehold on the game, which I thought they had. For those people that want to look at style points, Tennessee's win was better than, take a look here at your SEC yesterday. Georgia beats Georgia Southern in overtime, 23-17. Florida beats Florida Atlantic in overtime, 20-14. Auburn, well, they gave 34 points to Idaho. And all that's better than South Carolina, who lost at home to the Citadel. Not only does that make the Missouri game look better, suddenly that 24-0 over North Texas doesn't look too bad either. But, guys, thought it was a tough game, but it was never really in doubt. Much better than some of those ugly performances elsewhere in the SEC. Your thoughts on the game? What do you take away? Are you more worried about the ugliness 2 weeks in a row, or are you pleased with going to the SEC and going on the road and doing what you did?
Pleased with the win. Good enough. Pleased with the win. You went in there and won. Good win, ugly win. I thought there was one ugly part, and that was Tennessee's red zone offense. Other than that, good win.
I think the defense overall is just playing lights out. I mean, I think that not only do you see that defense right now playing as well as they've played all year long, but you see it in a lot of different areas because the pass rush, it's not just one guy beating their guy. It's now an entire team collapsing a pocket around a quarterback. That's huge. You're also, when you're seeing a guy miss a tackle or maybe not get the guy on the ground right away, you're seeing a lot more of our colored jerseys around that particular guy and there to make the play. The defense is playing lights out. My question is the offense got that instinct, or are they playing down to the other team? Because it seems like in the middle of the field, yeah, we're good. This is easy. You get to the red zone, it's kind of like they've done their job and they're kind of laying back a little bit. I'm not real sure, but defense is playing great. I think you've got some concerns at offense, but I think it's because the competition they knew they could beat without doing a lot.
We're going to have a whole segment on that, and the next segment is going to be all about conservative or playing to their strengths, hiding their weaknesses. We'll discuss that. It's a good point. Jimmy.
Tennessee didn't cash in on a number of opportunities. They had great field position many times, and he ended up with field goals. But going into this game, you figured Missouri wasn't going to do much. I thought Tennessee controlled both lines of scrimmage. They ran the ball effectively against a really good run defense. They shut Missouri's offense down. I think Missouri was 2 out of 15 on third downs and had, 223 yards. So I thought it was an efficient win. I thought there was a time and a place to be conservative. One thing as that game progressed, the only way, in my opinion, Missouri was going to get back in it is if the offense gave up a touchdown, a fumble, interception return, or if special teams gave up a big play. And I thought Tennessee played well in special teams. did what they needed to do, and I thought this was important in this town. They beat the spread.
Yeah.
Right?
which was a crazy spread to open with, and yet they beat it.
Yeah.
Getting back to conservative, and this again kind of touches on what we'll be in the next segment. Early on the red zone issues, they have it 3rd and 3 on their first drive of the game, and they run the ball. They don't throw it, they run it, and they kick the field goal. And Greg McElroy, the color announcer, said, well, it's kind of a conservative call. It was. I didn't have a problem with it, and here's why. Harken back to the Alabama game. First drive, you go right down the field. It's 3rd and 5 or 6. You drop Dobbs back to pass. He holds it, gets sacked. Medley can't hit the field goal. You get nothing. So I understand if they're saying, let's just get the points. Now, that may be too conservative, but I see what they were doing. David Ligon, your thoughts on that win yesterday? You wowed? Are you satisfied? Or are you a little disappointed?
It's a mixed bag. I think you're happy that you win the game, an SEC road game. Those are always good to get in division. But I think there's some issues with the offense, and that's finishing drives in the red zone. If you think about it, as you close closer to the goal line, that field shrinks. It's easier to defend for the defense. I think combined with some concerns of quarterback accuracy, I think our Mike DeBoer says, smaller field, inaccurate thrower, I see an interception, so we're going to run the ball. And you ran for 248 yards against a top 10 defense in the country. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty darn good night there for the offensive line and running backs.
Yeah, and I think we showed it last week. Jimmy, you said it last week, and I agree with you. I think you're also not seeing them throw across the middle. So, yes, you get down deep, there's less room for error. Also, you're not seeing them throw across the middle because that's where you have to be the most accurate, and I think they've learned by now they don't have a great accurate quarterback in terms of
I think if you get back to the defense playing well, they've basically had a bad quarter and a half now since the Alabama game. Since you gave up 21 points to Georgia, or 24, whatever it was. Yep. Ever since then, you've had one bad quarter and a half. Played well against Alabama. You played lights out last night. And I think that's what bodes best for going into next year, is you had guys hurt on defense. You inadvertently get to develop your depth a little bit. And last night was once again one of those games where it just looked like Missouri shouldn't be on the field with Tennessee. It looked like they were playing an FCS, FCS. I had it right the first time, team.
And how good would that defense be if you put out there Kurt Magid, who I think it took you half a season at least to figure out how to play without, if you hadn't had to lose Kyle Phillips, Shy Tuttle, who was ahead of Khalil McKenzie, who's now looks like he's caught up to where Tuttle was. You're doing it. You're getting better. Yes. You're showing improvement on that defense at a time when you've lost a lot of bodies who could really help you out. And the thing is, if you remember, they got better as the year went on defense last year as well. So this may be a trend for Mr. Jancic. And just speaking of the defense, over the last 5 games since Alabama, including Alabama, they're averaging 14 points allowed per game. Hard to beat that. All right, last question here. Has this team learned to close out games? Boy, I was on Twitter last night. When Missouri got their touchdown, it blew up. People are, here we go again. They're choking. They're going to blow it. They're too conservative. We know what happened in Florida, Oklahoma. I don't blame Alabama on them because you played your tails off down there. You weren't going to hold on to that one. But Florida and Oklahoma. But on the other hand, they stopped Georgia. They stopped South Carolina. They held on against Missouri last night. Do we need to still worry about this team blowing leads, or do you think they've learned how to handle these things at the end, close them out?
I think they've improved. I don't know if they've got it figured out yet. But the thing with, you give up something late and then the explosion on Twitter of saying, oh, here we go again. Well, that's their own fault. They created that earlier in the year, and you're not going to live that down this year. It's just not going to happen. But I definitely think there's been improvement. I don't know if they figured it out yet. If they'd figured it out, they'd be finishing drives on offense, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals, and it wouldn't even be a question if the team scores a touchdown late.
I will say yesterday they did close out Missouri. They gave up the touchdown drive, 3 and out. Then the defense stopped Missouri, and then the offense strung some plays together and ran the clock down.
That drive I liked a lot because you get the ball back with a little over 6 minutes left. You get 3 first downs. You turn it back over with maybe a minute left. The game's over. You help put that game away with the offense, which I like to see. But I will say this: Missouri's offense is challenged. We all know that. So is Vanderbilt's. Yeah. So you ought to be able to put Vanderbilt away, right? Yeah. Now your question is going to be when you get in a bowl game maybe and play a pretty good offensive team, how are you going to respond then?
And I think that's the big question. You're not playing very good, skilled teams. You played a lot better teams so far this year. So you're also – that's why I do feel like there's a little bit of we're more physical than these guys. We're more talented. We're faster than these guys. we know we can beat these guys at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I think that's not having a killer instinct a little bit there.
Fair enough. We'll get into that a little bit more in this next segment. I will say this, though, to take that, it's been a while since you've looked at Tennessee and said, game after game, more talented, faster, stronger, bigger. I mean, you're starting to see some stats, too, and we'll talk about one later in the show. Each week you're starting to see these stats that, well, this is the first time since 2003. This is the first time since 2002. And it's not negative stats. Positive stats. All right. Hey, send us your Twitter questions right now, and we will answer as many as we can in today's show with our VFL panel and also on our overtime segment, which we will tell you about a little later in the show that comes up on SportsSource.tv later today. I'm going to be fast. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the fact that this team, are they being conservative or are they simply covering their weaknesses? We'll discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source.